And when I say Dr. Jerry Graham stories, I'll preface by saying before I met Dr. Jerry Graham, I heard a number of these stories and I thought, oh, those are cute, but he sounds crazy, but I bet they're a little exaggerated.
Now, so Dr. Jerry, he was as wild as all the stories say?
Every bit as wild. People will still exaggerate some of the stories I've heard, which baffles me because you don't need to exaggerate Dr. Jerry Graham stories. That first night I met him, he comes out of the dressing room and he's stone cold sober. And if I remember right, he was wearing his blue polyester slacks and his red button-up shirt with white polka dots. And he's a good 300 and something pounds with bleached blonde hair. And when he was sober, oh my God, you would never meet a more articulate cat. This guy just is like, well, hello, young man. It is good to meet you, and I do appreciate you being willing to give me a ride. And he's just putting me over, and I'm just like, I'm just all starry-eyed, like, oh wow. And I should also say I had been drinking heavily, and so had my friend Lloyd. So Tim Flowers was the one driving the car that night, but it was my car, my brand new Chevy Citation. Yeah. So we're going down Highway 99 late at night, and I'm already marking out because I just ate a sandwich that the wrestler Ron Pope made, who was the Mighty Zulu, one of the worst wrestlers of all time, but still he was Mighty Zulu to me. So
yeah,
I was marveling over that I was eating a sandwich he made, and I'm just sitting there plowed as ever, and Doc says, Tim, could you pull off the highway here? I'm going to get a couple of beers. And, not being around the wrestling crowd a lot, I had no idea that wrestlers were just like, smoking dope and, drinking, on their road trips. So he goes into the liquor store, and I'm thinking, well, I shouldn't probably let people, be partying in my car, but he's Dr. Jerry Graham. So he does come out with a few beers, a 6-pack. He also comes out with a few bottles of liquor and a couple of bottles of wines, just in his arms as if he's carrying a baby with this drunken, not a drunken smirk, but just a smirk on his face, like, we're going to have a party now. So he sits in the car and he reaches into his pocket and he throws like half a dozen cigars at us in the back seat. And he just screams, cigars from heaven, kid. And then Tim Flowers said, oh dear, you did your old cigar from nowhere trick, Doc, which means he stole them from the liquor store. So we're going down Highway 99 and he's drinking the hard stuff like it's water. And it's Jekyll and Hyde. He went from the cordial man to a combination of the Tasmanian devil and W.C. Fields. He is just drinking and starts talking like, it was his war cry. And I'd never heard anybody say this before, but I heard it every time I was with him when he had been drinking. When he'd empty a bottle, he'd just open the window and throw it onto the lane next to him, not even looking to see if there's a car driving in, And wow. He just looked into the sky and just screamed to the heavens, you suck your mother's pussy, you cornholed your pregnant brother, and you fucked your pregnant sister, you whore. And when I say he said this every time he is drunk, I don't mean once or twice. It was like a religious mantra. And I just found out when I was doing newspaper research for the books I'm working on, I came across a reporter who talked about hanging. This was in 1963. A journalist was talking about partying with the Doc in a bar a few years earlier, and he mentioned the Doc's war cry. And he also said talked about the Doc telling a promoter something about his his parents, which I assume was the suck your mother's pussy. And
Wow,
so
Fear
this,
and Loathing with Dr. Jerry, huh?
oh yeah, this was amazing. And as we're halfway home going up the grapevine, I'm just saying, like, if there's somebody above, I don't care which god it is, get me home. I swear I'll never hang with this guy again. But I lied. Uh, I asked the powers to just get me home safe, and they did, but I lied. And the next great experience, which made me think, I must know this man. I have to know this man, come hell or high water, was so we drive him to the hotel in downtown LA. It was called the Imperial Hotel, and it was anything but imperial. It was built like in the 1920s, and I saw him at that hotel many times. But if the best way I could describe his living conditions and just his aura in general, it's the combination of a gritty Raymond Chandler novel combined with a Looney Tunes cartoon. And I don't say that like wink, wink. That's what his existence was like at that time. It took us forever to get 3 stories up to his room. And my friend Lloyd was a big strapping guy, about 6'1". And he wasn't an athletic guy, but he was solidly built. And Doc is just uncooperative and just being silly. And as soon as we'd get him standing up, he would just smirk at us and fall down like you could hear somebody saying timber. And he'd just fall down crashing to the ground, knowing he's
almost
fucking
do
with
like
us.
A flare flop.
Exactly. A 300-pound flare flop. Ooh. And he'd do this on the cement sidewalk and everything. And we're up to the 3rd floor, and finally Lloyd says, Jerry, get it together. We got to get home. It's 1 a.m. And Doc just grabs him and does like a judo toss across the hall. And Lloyd, fortunately, magically landed on his feet. But both Lloyd and I looked at each other shocked, like, okay, he's 300 pounds and he can't go more than a minute in the ring anymore, but he still knows how to chuck somebody easily. So the moment when I said I have to know this man is he's trying to get his key in the door, and the door is just this big door that you could probably just almost walk through it like in a bad movie. It was so badly constructed. But he can't open the door, and so Lloyd opens the door for him. And the lights are up, but you see the glow of a black and white TV. And we look in and we see somebody laying in his bed watching TV. And it's a blonde. He's got a cute blonde. No, not a total knockout, but from what we could tell in the dark, whoa, how does he do it? He's hit rock bottom. He lives in a flop house, but he's got a blonde in his bed. And so Lloyd hands the Doc his keys, and Doc just goes, thank you. He throws the keys behind him. Doc holds him his present. Doc throws the present behind him. Goes, call me. Do you call me? And we're like, okay, Doc. And we're just marveling. What? Wow. And 2 days later, we went to pick him up to take him to Hadco Plaza, which is where the local Lucha Libre shows ran every Sunday. And when we pick him up, he's, in good condition, and he gets in the car seat, and we say, so Doc, who's the lucky lady in your bed? And he goes, oh, she's a sweetheart. That's Maxine. She's wonderful. She keeps my room clean. Yeah, sometimes she makes me a nice meal, and oh God, what a woman in bed. She's all woman. And then he pauses. Well, let me correct that. Above the navel, she is all woman. And this is 1981.
And my last thing was Tyrus winning the world title for the NWA.
That's okay. That's not a world title. That hasn't been a world title for like 30 years.
I know. I almost feel like Pro Wrestling Illustrated's not even going to recognize it now that Tyrus is holding it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like the All Out thing, like just to get back to that, like
Hmm.
I think it's sad that I like CM Punk. I really do, and I don't
Yeah.
disagree with a lot of what he said. But the fact that he said it like that, that was like uncalled for.
Mhm.
And he did he did nothing to help himself. Subsequently, like he just looks like a fool, and that you get like fuck CM Punk chance in.
Hmm.
He got fuck CM Punk chance in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
I heard it
Scattered.
in Newark.
I heard it in
Newark
Newark,
was
yeah.
there.
But
Yeah.
I think, but when they did a show they did Dynamite, right?
Yeah.
The week after.
Oh yeah, that was right after.
In Chicago, and there were like some fuck CM Punk chants in Chicago, which is like unheard of. But it goes to show you, like, there is a segment of fans that exist in his hometown that would support him through thick and thin, that are like,
Mhm.
okay, well, we support this company more because they're an alternative to the WWE. But like, I mean, when I was in Chicago for All Out, like there was like a small but vocal minority around me, like fucking, like they're all from Mox. They didn't like CM Punk winning. Like there was like fuck CM Punk chants around me. Not as vociferously loud as like the pro Punk crowd there, obviously, but it exists in Chicago. Like, like I'm not one to always like cheer for the Canadian wrestler or something like that, even though I'm from Canada. But I just think it's a shame, because I think he had so much to offer that company, as his champion, to put someone else over. Because I think there is a thing that people don't put in the conversation more, is that he genuinely tries to help younger wrestlers elevate them, because I think he genuinely cares about wrestling as a sport and as a business, and like he knows that the future is like the younger wrestlers. And I think like that's a lot of that gets lost, is like how he helped a lot of young wrestlers in the back get up as like, no, he was toxic, he was poison. Who's feeding all this bullshit to people? Like, to like, like if you read the newsletters and you see who's talking about these things, well, okay, it's this guy who was threatened by Punk being the top star in the company. The guy brought the first $1 million gate for them, Okay, like if you're there in the inception, and this guy comes in like 2 years, like two years into it's after his creation, he's like the one making all the drawing all the big pay-per-view buy rates and drawing all these fucking $1 million gates, and it wasn't you at the beginning. Of course, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna try to fucking get rid of this guy. And I'm just gonna say everyone hates him. He was nothing but bad news in the locker room. But like, I'm sure for some people he was. But that's wrestling. That's you don't think wrestling is full of like toxicity? Of course it is. It's a business based on lying. The whole premise of wrestling is to lie to you, to me, to each other. Wrestlers are in it to make money. So if you make money, you got to stab people in the back. That's not a cynical view of wrestling. That's a realistic view of wrestling.
That definitely is. Now, Dave, I've only got a couple lists left. Why don't you give me your next one?
All right. For me, it was we were just talking about kind of, I wouldn't say much the scrum, but more like the downfall of CM Punk. That whole situation. Because I'm a Punk fan too. I wanted to see him do good things. It was tough that he was getting injured, but then to see, I guess I would equate it to like almost you're in that argument with somebody, and maybe somebody's been needling you, but then you're the guy that blows up, and it's like, okay, well, now you kind of made it. You became the bad guy because of this huge reaction. Like, you should have just, I don't know. It just what is what it was. But
I mean, we talked about it in Newark.
I haven't been a fan of Vince for years, obviously, either. Like, as the more you get to know about who this guy was, but it's like seeing all that stuff come out still is still such a bad look, So I'd have to put it in there as one of my worst too, because it's just like, I don't like talking to my girlfriend and stuff like, oh, is this what you watch? Yes. So it's that, those were really kind of the two that really jumped off the page for me, because it was kind of more that than like, you know, wrestling. So wrestling, there's always going to be shitty wrestling storylines and stuff like that. I try like to not even think about it, you know, like when I see something shitty, I'm like that weird fan where I go, okay, I don't want to watch this. You know, I guess it's just like, I don't want to dwell on negative shit, but so.
Yeah, so the next list I got for you is from Albert Bettis. His number 1 is the EVPs screwing over CM Punk and ruining any potential AEW had built over this past year. Number 2, Eric Young's murder on Impact. He's one of like 3 people that felt a way about that. Tony Khan buying and ruining Ring of Honor. The Young Bucks in general. And then stupid gimmick matches.
For example,
I think this is why I feel like people were just complaining about what they hate in wrestling. It's probably the war games that AEW did where somebody's always got to come off the top of the cage. Maybe the way Tony Khan goes to dog collar matches like once a year. He probably is thinking about the exploding ring death match. I feel like right now is a perfect time to shit on AEW. So people are just piling on with like the worst of what they hate about the company.
yeah.
Well, I'll say, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would be curious what you think too. For me, one of the issues I have with gimmick matches and AEW, we could say, but also WWE is really bad at this. But like AEW, like they had a dog collar match, and I understand why they couldn't. They don't want the Briscoes on TV, but you basically announced that double dog collar match a couple days before pay-per-view. You know, we're not building towards it, and then in WWE, we're having, and looks like they're finally starting to get away from this, thank God. But like the themed pay-per-views, you know, we just had War Games. Oh, that was themed too. So, but you know, like the themed, we had the Hell in a Cell pay-per-views all this time for a while, and it's just like, no, I kind of miss the days when we would build to these and they felt special.
Like when you say every year at this time of the year, we're going to have Hell in a Cell matches, they're not special because like you just expect them. Like if you have a feud in a wrestling company that's like, okay, we're going to culminate this. This is like naturally, we're going to culminate this in a Hell in a Cell match. Like, and that was like the top gimmick match in the WWE, WWF, WWE for a long time. It's like, this is how we're going to blow off a feud. I think that's how they blew off Batista, Triple H. Was that in a Hell in a Cell, right? Then they did. They blew off so many other things. Like a lot of Undertaker feuds were blown off in Hell in a Cell. Became kind of like one of his signature matches, like along with like a casket match or what have you, right? So, but then they just bastardized this. Like, let's have a pay per view every year. Elimination Chamber, same thing. It's like Elimination Chamber. Like I like the concept, but like they have too many. And like when you have 2 on the same show, I know you want to do something where like, okay, we want to have a women's elimination chamber match, we want to have a men's elimination match, we want to have a women's War Games match. You know what? That's awesome. Like then just have the women's War Games match. You know what I mean? But build to it. Don't make it. It's always this time of the year, like or Survivor Series is like that. I kind of wish they go back to the traditional elimination tag matches of the Survivor Series. My favorite Survivor Series is when they had like where every winner of each Survivor Series match went to the grand finale, and like I wish they bring that concept back. I thought that was a wonderful gimmick, and that's one of my favorite. That and the Rumble, like are I think the 2 things that you can keep every year. But when you have like a Hell in a Cell match, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean what it was originally designed to do. And like the whole thing with AW, like just putting out gimmick matches just to have them. I think it exposes the kind of flaw of Tony Khan's philosophy of wrestling is like that he's an Uber fan, right? And I'm glad, like, listen, don't get me wrong, like I'll take fucking Tony over fucking Vince Russo any day of the week. Okay? I'll take Tony over like some of these other fucking people that start wrestling companies that have no business. At least he loves wrestling. I'll give him that. But like I just wish he would be smarter about it and not use it as kind of like a playground, you know? It's like the whole joke is like, oh, he plays EWR, like the wrestling simulator game, but now he does it with real people, right?
Yeah.
And he books like that. And a lot of the stuff, the momentum that you had in the early days of AEW, especially through the pandemic, is like, okay, they're the company that's actually trying to do something interesting, and in North America, at least during the pandemic with lockdown wrestling, like WWE was like, not that was like just went to utter shits, right? And so like they come back, they bring Punk in, like the time when Punk came in, right? In his like from the match with Darby Allin and like all these other people, and then winning the world title before he got injured the first time with the doing the fucking crowd diving.
Yes.
It's the dumbest thing he could have done. I think that's the real start of his downfall. But that's when they were like, okay, they're ready. They're ready to go to a different level to really, really, really compete with the WWE. And I think if they use Ring of Honor as like their NXT and not as a television product, like that's the thing. He wanted to sell it to a different network. And once TBS hears about that, they're like, well, no, fuck you. We're not letting you we're not letting you push a different brand that you're going to sell to one of our competitors.
Right.
Put it on YouTube. It should always have been a YouTube show. Or you should have sold it to TBS or made Rampage your Ring of Honor show or something like that. If you could have, who knows, maybe TBS would have like, or Warner Bros would have been like, no, we're not turning this into fucking Ring of Honor. We're keeping it AEW. But like, if you had it on YouTube, they're not going to care about YouTube. But, and then it's a touring company. You also use it as a touring company to give people reps in the ring.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do like, every 2 weeks, we're going to go on a loop. We're going to hit Baltimore. We're going to hit, the Maryland area. We're going to hit, the tri-state area. We're going to hit the West Coast. We're going to hit the Midwest. And you get all these guys you sign to development, kind of essentially developmental deals who need more seasoning. And you get these veterans who shouldn't be on television anymore, but they still have value as people that other younger wrestlers can learn from. You put them in Ring of Honor and you go on tour with that brand, and you draw, and you keep it modest. Like you keep it like when Ring of Honor was like it's pre-Sinclair days, right?
Yeah.
You try to draw a gate, and you pay these people like a decent wage, but you could pay people a decent wage and let them work indies as well. Like let them work PWG, let them work GCW or whatever as well. Okay. But then when they're ready, when you're like, this guy's hot in ROH in our developmental territory, we're bringing them to AW, and but not fucking the fucking YouTube show, not fucking dark elevation, whatever the fuck it's called. Like nobody fucking watches. That's not developmental. That's just bullshit, right? That's just a waste of everyone's time at the live shows. Like, honestly, I did 3 fucking nights of AW in the Chicago area. And honestly, like those were some of the longest wrestling shows I've ever been to, because they were legit long, because you had to fit in dark elevation. Rampage, that was the worst. I was like, I should have just stayed in fucking downtown Chicago and gone drinking with Stephanie Chase, because like it would have been better than this shit I had to sit through, like in fucking like suburban Chicago, like that took fucking forever to get to, because we had to get there through rush hour traffic. The only good thing was I got to meet my buddy Joey Bay, in the aisles. Like, he met me outside. It was like we talked, and then, but other than that, I could have just like fucked off back to downtown Chicago, gone drinking, had a nice like pasta meal, at a nice restaurant down there. But oh well, c'est la vie.
I told Dave about that when I went to see Rampage at the Mohegan Sun up here. They did 2 hours of dark before Rampage, and that 2 hours of dark, if I was 15 years younger, I would have loved it, because you're giving me so much wrestling. But instead, they're just bringing out the next enhancement talent, bringing out the next person to squash them, and then again and again. And I saw 15 matches before I was like, we have an hour and a half till showtime. And then, of course, when Rampage hit, it went by so quick. Now, I've got one more list to bring you guys today from Philip Montagas of the Booking the Territory Facebook group.
You got a lot of people who are heads of Facebook groups. It's very interesting.
Yeah, they like to bring the list.
Oh yeah, I post these questions to a couple different Facebook groups. The Mothership Facebook group usually gives us a good feedback. The Booking the Territory, but you also get like this kind of pro Cornette vibe, and you're gonna see it in this. Number 1, the no selling. Number 2, Young Bucks. Number 3, Tony not putting them boys on TV. 4, CM Punk getting shit on by little kids who think they know wrestling just because they know some insider terms. 5, any of the intelligence insulting WWE characters and how they act. And then Jake Rule, number 6, Tyrus getting that championship.
Wow, like so many people care about the NWA. That's really surprising. Like I don't give a shit he won that title because I don't fucking watch that show.
Yeah.
I maybe watched a bit of it when it first launched, but like after like Lagana got outed as being a scumbag, like and then like let's be honest, he was the creative force behind there, and then like Cornette fucked himself because he's Cornette, right? Like he got a big mouth. Then with the shit, it's like who cares? It's a nothing brand. Like honestly, I have to maintain this ignorance that Billy Corgan owns it because I still want to listen to Siamese Dream because it's a fucking great album. I still want to enjoy Siamese Dream and I want to enjoy his guitar playing because he's an amazing guitarist. But then the way I do that is like I pretend that NWA does not exist. I pretend that he doesn't own it and is like completely a fucking dork when it comes to being a wrestling promoter and booker. And so I could just I like Billy Corgan, the musician, and that's it. I don't care about him as a wrestling promoter. No one should care about him as a wrestling promoter. No one should watch the NWA because it's shit. Spend your money. You know what? Like I'm gonna, Joe, I'm gonna, echo something you said. Watch IWTV. It's a great fucking product. Watch Beyond Wrestling. It's fun. Watch Limitless Wrestling. It's fun. There's I've seen when I was watching Garcia before AEW, he was doing amazing stuff as IWTV television champion, right? Yeah, primarily in Limitless. Like he was cutting these amazing promos. He was doing stuff with Kevin Blackwood. Great stuff. I'm like, shit, that's what I want to see in independent wrestling. And I was getting something I wasn't getting from mainstream wrestling in these things. Like that people care that this fucking Trump supporting fucking Fox News correspondent piece of shit Tyrus wins this fucking nothing fucking belt in this nothing fucking company. I don't get it. Like you guys need to really just forget the NWA exists and don't what I mean? Don't give breath to nothing, to nobodies.
Absolutely.
I mean, usually we do a top 3. But I think you aired out Tyrus and the NWA enough. I personally still want to enjoy Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I like Machina. You got to kind of look past Billy Corgan sometimes. But WH, thank you for coming here and lighting fire to everything we hate. One more time, plug what you'd like to plug, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so you can pretty much find everything I do over at postwrestling.com. And yeah, we celebrated our 5th year anniversary in Newark, New Jersey a couple of months ago. That was a very fun event, and we're continuing strong going into the 6th year, starting next month in January of 2023. I do 3 shows over there. I do Post Perez. The new episode, I don't know when this could drop, but the new episode will be coming out sometime before the New Year's Eve. So hopefully people will listen to that. I'll be doing that with Karen Peterson, who does so much great work on our website covering Japanese wrestling, particularly the Joshi scene. I also do MCU Later with Wei Ting over at the Post Wrestling Patreon feed. So the Post Wrestling Cafe. So you have to be a member of that to hear those shows. But we cover the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both in film form and television form over on Disney Plus. And finally, the long and winding railroad. And you guys showed the new t-shirt that's up on sale over at store.postwrestling.com. It's a great gift. I think we're probably going to have a Boxing Day sale. So if you want to save a little bit of money, get that. That comes in white and also comes in black. I have the black one. The white one's very popular though. Get both. Get both. Why not? And yeah, that's it. At WH Park 9 if you want to hear my shitty takes about wrestling but mainly if you want to see what I've had for dinner or lunch.
We're halfway through this card. I feel like this is kind of turned into we're pumping everything up, but fuck it, I love it, and you're willing to do it, so thank you.
Fuck yeah.
All right, next match. Then we're halfway through. Team Bandito, ASF, Bandito, Laredo Kid, Ares, Demonic Flamita, and Gringo Loco.
Man, Team Bandito versus Team Gringo. Bandito, of course, needs no introduction. His reign, some say his reign still continues as Ring of Honor world champion. And, to have your finger to the pulse of Lucha Libre, not many people have it more than Bandito. His in-ring work is spectacular. The people he surrounds himself with is spectacular. But his team has their hands full, certainly, because Gringo Loco is no fucking joke. Gringo Loco, hands down, the most talented luchador from this side of the border, I think, that's ever been. His magic in all the scrambles and in every other format of match he's ever been placed in GCW, I think, speaks volumes. The base god is able to do things in the ring that no one should be able to do. And he's got his homies too. So when you just I think of the legendary Mysterio and Juventud, or Mysterio and Psychosis, and all these legendary matches, whether it be at the ECW arena or on WCW Nitro, that kind of showed the whole world what's possible with modern lucha style. That's my prediction, and that's what I'm expecting out of that 6-person lucha team-based war.
Absolutely. Fearless. All those guys are fearless. Next match, be a little easier to preview, but I will say this. As we talked about a little, off air, being long wrestling fans, I was always a mark for surprises and mystery. And the Briscoes defending the Game Changer wrestler against we don't even know. And, I want to see it.
I know, it's so compelling, and there's so much talent announced for the show that doesn't even have a match assigned yet. And then there's always the possibility of, but what else? Like, what if the challengers aren't people that are part of what's been announced? You know what I mean? Anything's possible. There's been a lot of talk online. I think there's several frontline candidates, and I don't think anyone I was gonna say no one loses anyway, but in a way the Briscoes could, you know what I mean? Because when you don't know who you're facing, it's a lot harder to prepare for it. But I sound like a broken record, but the Briscoes, is anyone better in tag team wrestling than the Briscoes right now? Untouchable. To be able to call their matches in Game Changer Wrestling, to see and study their work up close like that, and the respect that the fans and the other wrestlers have for them, those guys are beyond next level, man. If they were born a decade or two earlier, they would have been, on top with the Road Warriors. You know what I mean? They're just like that day, and the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express and everybody. Like, they're just, to me, they're the best tag team in the world right now. And I know other teams like FTR claim that, and in their mind or in their world, they might be, but a lot of people make a strong case for the Second Gear crew. You know what I mean? And they're a unique force to be reckoned with. So anything's possible. Who knows what it might be? Yeah,
that's one of the great selling points of this too. Again, we got to see. And it's not like we're not giving you an outstanding card, so you're getting
right.
That's like just show up. Yeah. Okay. So next match, to me, this actually might be the match of the night in terms of just action, which is saying something since we talked about it. But the Grab the Brass Ring ladder match, Jordan Oliver, PCO, Leo Rush, Alex Colon, Tony Deppen, and Jimmy Lloyd. I feel like all of those people have had like awesome 2021s. And
it's just so crazy. And the opportunity and what it represents, any shot at any of the Game Changer Wrestling championships at any time, is what the holder of the brass ring then has access to. So when you think of that contrast of styles, you know what I mean? You have Jimmy Lloyd, the master of the scramble, who's not afraid to get more than down and dirty. Alex Colon, the Mr. Three-Peat himself. But has Alex Colon ever faced a juggernaut like PCO? Do you know what I mean? The French-Canadian Frankenstein. That guy he's not human. He's a monster. You know what I mean? You add to that the technicality and sheer assholeness personified of Tony Deppen, the incredible high flying and everything that Leo Rush brings to the table. And it just goes on and on. I mean, that match is stacked, like absolutely, absolutely stacked.
Yeah, and we got two more. This is just an insane card. Again, Jonathan Gresham defending that Ring of Honor title against Blake Christian. If you watched the last show, both these guys coming off big wins. I think this is another sleeper.
Oh yeah, Blake Christian has been one of the greats for a while now, and he's reemerged on the scene with a whole new level of passion and dedication, and it's like what he's delivered in the ring right now it seems like superhuman. You know what I mean? Like, he seems primed. He seems ready. He seems as strong as Gresham is, as unfuckwithable as Gresham is on the mat. Christian, I think, brings that to the game, but brings a whole other set of skills. And I think we're going to see a pure rules match, maybe amongst the likes of which we've never seen before, because the stakes are so amplified, not just for the prestigious title that's on the line, but the platform and the audience and what it means. You know what I mean? Like John Gresham, there's no way he wants to go back to Terminus and wants to go back to Ring of Honor without that belt. You know what I mean? And with all his various appearances and everything. And Blake Christian wants to show the world that he's the guy that's going to basically take the show. He's going to steal the show every single time. It doesn't matter where you slot him. It doesn't matter anything, because Blake Christian's future is determined by Blake Christian and his abilities in the ring. There's no other limitation on him anymore. So therefore, Blake Christian, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's Blake Christian's night, but we'll find out.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a good one. His ability, he can do it everywhere. And that main event coming off the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame induction, Homicide gets his shot at the Game Changer Wrestling title against the returning Jon Moxley.
What can be said? Jon Moxley, one of the illest to ever do it. But then you want to talk about ill, fucking Homicide, man. It's two legends. It's two legends of independent wrestling, and obviously both of their work has far exceeded the scope of independent wrestling throughout their storied careers. But as two like Mount Rushmore representations of independent wrestling, Moxley and Homicide, just a war for the ages, a dream match, a match I don't think you could really see anywhere else but GCW, and how fitting to have it in that room on that platform, and to have Mox back in wrestling with the title. He never lost, and Homicide went through a lot to get this opportunity. So, man, the words main event made have never been more aptly applied to this. It's going to be special for sure. I'm sure Moxley wants to show and prove that he's still Moxley, but Homicide, I think, wants that big win on the big platform, and he wants to win the biggest prize in the sport in his home city. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ingredients and a lot of potential for magic. There's a lot of potential for violence. So that's kind of really the ultimate formula, in my humble opinion.
Great way to close the show. Absolutely. Well-deserved main event. Kevin, we've talked about a lot. We turned this into a countdown show at the end, but I think
hell yeah. Good. We'll rerun it on Sunday before the pay-per-view. Anytime,
brother. Anything you want to promote or anything else you want to talk about? Floor is yours, man.
Sure. I'm about to release a new T-shirt that Sayo Zawa from Japan drew for me, and Powerbomb Prints printed up. It's fucking stunning. Later today, I'm going to be putting up a reveal trailer of it and putting it on sale on my site. I'll also have them in New York. So if anyone wants to support me like that, please do. My website is dignifiedbastard.com. Additionally, I would encourage everyone to please check out patreon.com/GameChangerWrestling. We do a lot of great content on there. The official Game Changer Wrestling podcast is exclusive to it. Myself and Brett Lauderdale take questions for hours every episode and give them all back to the Patreon community exclusively. There's the World of Deathmatch with Alex Colon and Stephen A. There's the World of Deathmatch newsletter, the TJ and Friends unprecedented, like behind the scenes video access to the talent and alternative camera angles of the events and things like that. Early access to ticket on sales, exclusive merch. It's a whole thing going on, and a lot of what's happening is due in great part to our great Patreon community. So we encourage you to join it at any level you can. And then, of course, GCWmerch.com is the official GCW merch hookup. Shout out to our friends from Orange Crush. Shout out to Pabst. And shout out to me, your boy KG, at OG Kevin Gill on all social media. And shout out to our friends at Middle Kingdom Wrestling, who recently made history working with the governments of China and Japan to promote a series of wrestling events, to promote kind of a global, what would be the right word? To create kind of, I want to choose my words very carefully here. Let's see. So Middle Kingdom Wrestling and the State Department of the United States and the government of China all teamed up to bring a series of pro wrestling events to China in the spirit of just opening up the doors of communication and opening up the spirit of people. You know what I mean? We're all people at the end of the day, and people enjoying things together and using the art of professional wrestling to bring the people together and to build a bond on something like that is so cool. And I'm honored that the shows just were run live in China over the last few days, and then I'm going to be doing commentary in post production on that. I would have loved to have been there to do it, but with the Hammerstein and everything, it was not possible. So I will be doing it in post, and you can check out Middle Kingdom Wrestling on YouTube, and they're doing great things in China, bringing regular wrestling events, homegrown talent, you know, training people out there, and it's great just to see that flag of wrestling taken around the world as a way of bringing people together.
There you go. And this Sunday, the World on GCW, 8 p.m. is the main show. Fight TV and on regular pay-per-view. So
yep, and that
out.
the kickoff event starts at, I believe, right around 7.
Yeah.
And you're not going to want to miss that. A lot of great talent is going to be seen in that first hour. So make sure you tune in at 7 and get acquainted with the world on GCW.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much.